Welcome back to the AI Cafe Conversations podcast. I'm Sahar Andrade, your AI whisperer and neuroscience-based neuroleadership consultant and Forbes Coaches Council member. I want to start today with something that happened on a call I had recently. I was talking to an HR director, smart, experienced, cared deeply about her people. And she said to me, Sahar, I don't know what to do. My managers are done. Not struggling, done. I asked her what she meant. She said, they are showing up, they are doing the job, but it's like the lights are on and no one is home. And I knew exactly what she was describing because I have been hearing versions of that same sentence from HR leaders across the country for the past 12 months. Middle managers are breaking right now. And it's not because they are weak. It's not because they cannot handle pressure. It's because they're being asked to absorb more simultaneous pressure than the human nervous system was designed to hold. That is what we are talking about today. Why this is happening, what it costs, and what you can actually do about it. So stay with me. So what is the crisis and what's actually happening? Okay. Let me give you some numbers first, because sometimes when we see data, we understand if the scale of what we are dealing with in a way that words alone cannot capture. Wiley, one of the most respected leadership research organizations, found that 47% of middle managers report stress and severe stress. Not moderate, not occasional, severe. Gartner research found that the average employee is currently navigating 14 separate organizational changes at the same time. 14. Think about that for a moment. And 73% of employees report change fatigue, which means that most of your workforce is not just tired of change, they are neurologically depleted by it. Now, here is what makes this uniquely painful for middle managers. They are not just going through those 14 changes themselves. They are absorbing them from above, from executives and from leadership, and then transmitting them to their teams below. They are the human infrastructure between a mandate and a human being. And right now, that infrastructure is under enormous strain. Above them, AI mandates, strategic pivots, workforce reductions, expectations that their team will adapt faster, produce more, and learn new tools, sometimes without additional training or support. Below them, teams who are exhausted, scared, and in some cases quietly resistant, because 73% of employees report feeling change fatigue. Let that sink for a moment. That does not mean they're lazy. It means their nervous system are full. And in the middle, absorbing pressure from both directions is the manager. There is a phrase that one of my clients used that I have not been able to forget. She said, I feel like the filling in a panini, getting compressed from both sides, getting hot, and slowly just melting. This is not a metaphor. That's a nervous system description. When a human being experiences chronic, sustained pressure from multiple directions, the brain does something very specific. The amygdala, the threat detection center of the brain, begins to fire continuously, not just in response to a crisis, continuously, because the environment itself has become the crisis. And when the amygdala fires, it competes with the prefrontal cortex. The prefrontal cortex is where you plan, where you problem solve, where you regulate emotion, where you lead with empathy, compassion, and strategy. But you can't run both systems at full capacity at the same time. The brain has to choose. And when the threat signal is constant, guess who wins? The survival brain wins. So when your manager seems irritable, when they make reactive decisions, when they cannot think clearly or hold space for their team the way they used to, this is what is happening. This is not a character failure. This is neuroscience. This is neurobiology. And HR leaders, this is where you come in. Because what most organizations do in this situation is they send managers to another training, another workshop, another resilience program. And I'm going to tell you something difficult. A dysregulated nervous system cannot absorb new skills. The brain is not available for learning when it's in survival mode. You can't train your way out of a biology problem. And here I want to discuss with you what is actually costing you to have that happening. Let's talk about what happens when this goes unaddressed. Because right now, a lot of organizations are hoping this is temporary, hoping the managers will just push through, hoping things will stabilize. But here is what the data tells us about what is already happening. Gallup research shows that managers are 24% more likely to consider leaving their jobs in the next 6 months compared to non-managers. 24%. That means your middle management layer, the people who hold institutional knowledge, who know your culture, who have relationships with your teams, they are quietly looking for exits. That's quarter of your workforce for middle managers. Deloitte found that 40% of managers said their mental health actually declined when they took on a leadership role. Not improved, declined. So we are asking people to accept a promotion that, according to research, has a 40% chance of making them feel worse. And then we wonder why the pipeline is drying up. And from a financial standpoint, I know HR leaders have to make the business case. A burned out executive costs a company over $20,000 per year, per person, just in lost productivity, in absenteeism, and poor decisions. And replacing a senior manager costs on average anywhere from 50 to 200% of their annual salary. Again, let that sink. Burnout is not a wellness problem. It's a financial exposure. But beyond the numbers, I want to talk about something that does not show up in a spreadsheet. What happens to a team when their manager is breaking? Nervous systems are contagious. This is not a metaphor. This is neuroscience. Humans have mirror neurons. We pick up on the emotional and psychological state and physiological state of the people around us, especially people in authority. When a manager is dysregulated, anxious, shut down, or in survival mode, that signal travels, it spreads. The team picks it up. I have been in organizations where the culture felt heavy before anyone said a single word. You walk in and you can feel it. That is not imagination. That is the collective nervous system of the group, and it starts at the top, whatever team you are in. When managers cannot regulate, teams cannot regulate. When teams cannot regulate, performance drops. When performance drops, leadership applies more pressure, which makes the manager more dysregulated, which makes the team more dysregulated. The chicken or the egg. And this is the loop that is running in organizations right now. The good news, and there is good news, is that you can interrupt this loop. Not by adding more to the manager's plate, but by understanding what the nervous system actually needs to come back online. This is the work when it gets really interesting and real. So let's talk about the solution and what actually works. So what do you do? If you are an HR leader watching your middle managers burn, what is actually effective? I want to offer you 3 things that the neuroscience research actually support. And one thing I want you to stop doing before it's making it worse. Let me start with what to stop. I know this is counterintuitive. I know that. Oxymoron maybe, but let me share it with you. I know leadership development is what HR does. And I'm not saying stop developing your managers. I'm saying the sequence matters enormously. Think about it this way. If someone comes to you running a fever of 104 degrees, you do not sit them down and teach them a new skill. You address the physiological state first. You get the fever down, and then when their body can absorb information again, you teach. The same principle applies here. A nervous system in chronic threat cannot learn. The research on this is clear. Cortisol, our stress hormone, causes a measurable shift from executive function to automated survival behavior. The alarm system is on 24/7. It's like having the engine of your car running 24/7, nonstop. Just think about it. What will happen if you do that? A nervous system in chronic threat mode cannot learn. The research on this is clear, like I said. And I'm repeating this so it will stick with you. Cortisol, the stress hormone, causes a measurable shift from executive function to automated survival behavior. Your managers are not failing to apply what they learn. They literally cannot access it under sustained pressure. So step 1, regulate first, strategize second. This is actually the foundation of the work I do. I have a priority framework I call BRAIN, B-R-A-I-N. And it's built on the premise that you cannot create lasting leadership change without first creating the neurological conditions for that change to take root. You always go to the root, never the symptoms. That's what I always say. You cannot skip this step. It's not soft work. It's not woo-hoo out there, and it's not kumbaya, let's hold hands. It's neuroscience, people. It's the prerequisite for all the other work. That was step number 1. Step number 2, that actually works. And I have seen this transform teams, is naming the pressure out loud. There is something that happens in the nervous system when a human being has their experience accurately named and witnessed. The threat signal softens because the brain no longer has to work as hard to manage the unexpressed. When leaders sit with their managers and say, not I know you're all under a lot of pressure and we need to push through, thinking this is motivation and inspiration, actually they are demotivating them. They are increasing their dysregulation and their misalignment. But you rather say, I see what you are carrying right now. This is objectively a lot. And I'm not here to tell you to perform better. I'm here to figure out how we carry this together. Something shifts. This is not warmth. This is neuroscience. The ventral vagal system, right here in the chest, the part of the nervous system responsible for social engagement and safe connection, activates in response to accurate attunement. You cannot manufacture this with a scripted message, but you can learn to do it genuinely, in an authentic way. If not, they're gonna know that it's not authentic. Third, look at what you are asking managers to hold. I mean, literally audit the load that they have. 14 concurrent changes is not a management problem. It's a design problem. HR leaders have more influence over this than they sometimes realize. What is not negotiable right now? What is being asked of managers that could be held at another level? Where is the organization itself creating the pressure? Again, I work with different frameworks, and for this specific one, I work with a framework specifically designed for people-focused interventions. Human-centered leadership, human-centered AI. This is the core of who I am. That framework is called CARES, C-A-R-E-S. And one of the things it asks is this: are our systems, our processes, our demands built in ways that actually support human capacity, or are we designing for throughput and hoping the humans can keep up? They will catch up, right? No, they don't. Because the answers to that question are often the difference between an organization that retains its best people and one that quietly loses them. I want to tell you about something I saw in a client engagement. I'm going to protect the details, but the pattern is real. There was a manager, 12 years in the company, outstanding track record. And over the course of about 8 months, he went from being one of the most trusted leaders on his floor to someone his team quietly started working around. Not because he changed, but because the environment changed around him, and no one gave him the tools to protect it or to process it. By the time HR got involved, he was 3 weeks from leaving. And the thing he said in our first session together was, I do not feel like myself anymore. I used to know how to do this job. Now I'm second guessing everything. I'm second guessing myself. I'm second guessing my thinking. I'm second guessing my decisions. And I'm second guessing my actions. This is not a confidence problem. This is a nervous system problem. And when we addressed it at that level, when we worked with the actual physiology of what was happening, he came back fully. He is still with that organization, still leading, and his team's engagement scores went up over the next quarter. That is what is possible when you address this at the right level. So where does this leave you? If you are an HR leader listening to this, I want you to think that about one manager on your team right now. One person who has been performing at a high level, who you have noticed changing in ways you cannot put your fingers on or you cannot fully explain. That person may not need another training. They may need someone to accurately name what they are carrying and offer a different kind of support. If you want to understand what regulated leadership actually looks like in practice and how to build the conditions for it in your organization, I do a no pitch leadership clarity call. 30 minutes, just you and me. We look at what is actually happening in your leadership layer, what the nervous system science says about it. The link is below in the description notes. You can just schedule it there, 30 minutes. Leadership does not fail. Nervous systems do. And it's time to start building organizations that understand the difference. I'm Sahar Andrade. This is AI Cafe Conversation Podcast. Thank you for being here. This was our Wednesday long form podcast. Before I leave, I always say, show me some love. Save, share, subscribe. Leave me a comment. Leave me a review. It really helps us, and thank you for making us on the top 2% global podcast. We are unique in the way we present neuroscience, AI, and leadership together in a human-centered AI and human-centered leadership manner. Leadership does not fail. Nervous systems do. Till I see you next Friday for our Forbes article like short podcast. Peace out.